Well, hi everybody. I hope everybody's doing good today, and it's nice to have you back again for another episode of the Expat Answerman Videocast. I wanted to start out today's show by telling you a little bit about something that happened here at my house recently. You probably remember back about a month ago or so, I had told you about a little security incident we had here, where a fellow climbed over our gate and tried to get into our house. And one of the things that I mentioned was that we were going to get a new dog that was going to be trained for security purposes. We had another dog previously. We've had, our dog was Pepper, and we've had Pepper for, I think, 4 years, but it might have been 3 years, but I'm pretty sure it was 4 years. So Pepper was always a little different, though. Like, for example, most dogs, they like to go out walking and that kind of thing. Like if you're going for a walk, you take your dog, put him on a leash, and take him for the walk, and they just love that. Well, Pepper, he wasn't like that. He never wanted to go outside of our gate. He always wanted to stay inside. He was afraid. You put a leash on him, and he would just sit down and not budge. You'd have to drag him. And so he was different than other dogs, and I think Pepper kind of had a little mental disability of some kind. I'm not sure, but he was a pretty good dog. He was good about just hanging around with you, and he liked to be petted and this kind of thing. He'd play a little bit, but he never was really a watchdog. He wouldn't bark at people that were strangers or anything like that. So. As far as like this guy that was trying to get into our house a while back, Pepper wasn't the dog that would stop that or anything. So that's why we decided we wanted to get a different puppy and get a young enough puppy that he could be trained to be a good security dog. So I went with my daughter and Chris, my son. We all went down and found a dog and brought him home, and Pepper was immediately very jealous. And he was kind of curious about the new dog, and also just very cautious and didn't want to associate with the dog, even though he was curious. And I figured this was going to happen, but I figured after a few days everything would work out okay. Well, it was only about less than a week later that my other two sons, Aaron and Jared, came home from the United States, and they had been gone for, Jared had been gone for about 2 to 3 months, something like that. Aaron had been gone for about 10 months or so almost a year. But still, dogs can remember people by their smell or whatever. I mean, I've heard of even 20 years later, the dog will still remember the person. Well, when Pepper saw Aaron and Jared, I mean, he was growling at him. He didn't like it at all. He wouldn't bark at strangers or growl at strangers, but when it came to our own family members, I mean, he was upset. So I didn't like that, but I figured that maybe in a few days he'd come around and he'd be better. But ever since we had that new puppy, Pepper had just been sulking and just pouting. He was hanging out in the back or alongside of the house where we didn't go very often, and he wouldn't come and see us. If we called him, he wouldn't come, nothing. So he was acting very strangely. Well, then one day he started acting a little bit better, and he was not growling at Jared, so Aaron was inside the house, and I told Aaron to come outside and try to be around Pepper and see how Pepper reacted. I thought he'd be okay by then. Well, when Aaron came out, Pepper attacked him. And I mean, he was vicious. He looked to me like he wanted to kill Aaron. And he got a hold of Aaron's leg, and we were able to get the two separated. Aaron went back inside, and I decided at that time Pepper had to go. He had to be euthanized, put down, put to sleep, whatever you want to call it. I could not have a dog here that was going to attack family members, and he wouldn't even attack strangers or even growl at strangers or bark or anything. How could I put up with him attacking one of our family members? So I decided, Pepper was going to have to be put to sleep. But, I talked about it with Aaron, and he wanted me to give Pepper a little bit more chance, and he said he was going to try to establish a little better relationship with Pepper, spend more time with him, and just see how it worked out. And I thought that would be okay. I told him maybe we'd try for a week or so, but Pepper was going to be kept on leash or in his doghouse because I didn't want him to be attacking anybody. Well, about 4 or 5 days into that, Pepper attacked me, and I mean, he bit my arm. He got a real firm grip on my arm, and my arm got all swollen, and I had a bruise from my wrist to my elbow. And in the past, Pepper had never tried to attack me or do anything to me. He knew that I was kind of the master, I was the boss, and we always had a good relationship, but boy, he sure did attack me. And at that time, I just decided it had to be done. I wasn't going to wait any few more days to try to get a better relationship going between Aaron and Pepper. He had shown that he just was not going to be the dog that we wanted or needed. So I wasn't really sure what to do. I was a little bit worried about taking Pepper to the vet because, like I said, he didn't ever want to go outside our gate. He was scared to go outside, and I was afraid with him being so agitated, he was going to really go on the attack if we tried to take him out. And that kind of worried me, and maybe he'd attack some kids that were outside on the street or something, so I wasn't quite sure what to do. But I found out that one of my daughters, Nicole, she has a friend that lives just around the corner here, and her father works for the Davao City Dog Pound, which, I don't even think there's many cities in the Philippines that even have a pound. Most of the cities you go to, there's a lot of stray dogs all over the place. Davao doesn't really have many stray dogs. You don't see them because these workers from the pound go around and get all the strays and take them to the pound. So I hadn't really thought too much about approaching the dog pound, but when I found out that Nicole's friend had her father work for the dog pound, we decided to check with them, and that really worked out well. The man came here the very next morning. They came about 7 o'clock in the morning with a crew from the pound. They had a truck that they used for getting these kind of animals that had kind of gone wild or were wild, and they had some tools for catching the animal, for safely bringing the animal to the truck, and this kind of thing. So we had Pepper in his doghouse or cage, whatever you want to call it, and they used their tools to get him out of there. They had like a kind of a thing that went around his neck on a pole, and they were able to get him on that, and they brought him over to the truck, put him in the truck, and it was over. They didn't even really charge us anything for that. They said they wanted to keep Pepper at the pound for a period to observe him in case he had rabies, but I was already sure that he didn't have rabies because Pepper had had his shots when he was supposed to have them, and he just shouldn't have had rabies. But they said they needed to do that, so that's okay. And they did ask that if we could provide food during the time that he'd be at the pound, and that was no problem. So instead of giving the food, they said we could give money for the food, and the food would probably only be like, a couple hundred pesos for that amount of time. But I gave him 500 pesos. I told him we would contribute the rest to the dog pound, which they did not require. They just said that if we wanted to contribute to the pound, it was just up to us how much we would contribute. And, 500 pesos, it would have cost me more than that at the vet if we had him put to sleep at the veterinarian. So I was okay with that. And the dog pound people were very professional, very efficient. It was all done quickly, and no problems at all. So I was very impressed. If anybody from the city government or from the dog pound itself is happening to see this video, I thank them very much for their service, and it was very good. And, so we've got our other puppy is named Jackie, and Jackie seems like she might be okay. She's going to have training to do the security stuff, so once she's old enough for that, we'll get that done. And we're actually going to be getting a second puppy. They'll both be puppies, so they should get along good together, I think. One of my daughters, Jean, her friend has some puppies at the house right now, so we're going to get one of those. And we'll see how it works out. I think it's going to work out good, though. So anyway, Pepper's gone, and I just wanted to tell you guys about the experience. You may run into these kind of things if you live in the Philippines. And to me, just the fact that Davao City had a dog pound, I think was really a great thing. And I was very surprised and happy to hear that they had that and that the work was done very well. So thank you guys, and I appreciate your help with our dog, and very happy with the dog pound. So anyway, we do have a reader or viewer question today. It's from Stephen, and Stephen wrote into me, and he's asking about banking and some issues that he's having with banking here in the Philippines, and I've got some answers for him, and I'll share those with him and with you. And let's just cut to a commercial first, and then we'll get the question from Stephen. I just want to ask everybody, if you need any services that are, from any of our sponsors, which are mostly my own businesses, that helps support our publishing on our website and also our videos and that kind of thing. So I appreciate the support that you might give to our businesses. I try to offer very good services, very good customer service, and we're always here to help you. You can always write to me, ask your question, whatever you need. So your support would really be appreciated. Okay, here's our commercial, and then we'll hear from Stephen. Do you have a special person in the Philippines that you'd like to send a gift to? Maybe some flowers, chocolates, or some other type of gift, perhaps a teddy bear. Go to www.wowphilippines.com. That's WOW Philippines.com. We can take care of you and send a perfect gift for any occasion. We've been in business for nearly 17 years now. Come and visit today. wowphilippines.com.
Here's my question. I recently received my Veterans Benefits check. I don't have a Philippines bank account. Every bank or money transaction firm, like Western Union, refuses to cash it or has a bunch of rules or requirements before they'll even allow it to be cashed after a month of waiting. Is there any place that will cash this U.S. Treasury check without charging an inordinate amount to do so? I live in Tacloban City. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you very much for your question, and I'm happy to answer for you. Let me first start out by saying, on Stephen, he told me that he doesn't have a microphone on his computer, and he doesn't have a webcam or anything like that, so he couldn't leave a voicemail, but he knew that I was going to include his question on my videocast. And I had gotten some flack for this a while back when I used a computer-generated voice to read the email that the person had sent me. And that's what I did with Stephen as well. And on YouTube, there was a guy who made some comments, and, he told me that it was fake if I did it like that. He said that I made up the comment, I made up the question. No, this is all, I get so many questions every day from people who want to find out, how to do this or that in the Philippines or whatever. And sometimes I just use a computer-generated voice in order to get that onto my videocast. I could just read it, but I just think it's more effective if it's coming from a different voice than mine. So that's the only reason that I used a computer-generated voice, because it was received by email, and Stephen knew that I was going to be including the questions, so I don't see a problem with it. If you don't like having a computer-generated voice, that's your prerogative, no problem, but I also have the prerogative to do things the way I want, and I'm sorry for those that don't like that, but I don't think it's a big deal. So anyway. Okay, Stephen, your question about banking, I just feel like if you don't have a bank account in the Philippines, but you need to deposit these checks or cash these checks or anything, trying to do all this without any kind of financial connection to the Philippines, it's kind of like if you lived in the U.S. and you were getting these checks and you were going to one of these payday loan places to cash the checks. And, you know, they charge exorbitant fees because basically they don't know who you are. You walk in these places, you want to cash, they're going to charge you like 20% or something. It's just ridiculous. But, you know, there's an easy way around that, Stephen. The answer really is go open a bank account. You know, you said you've been living here, so you just need to establish some ties to the country. Go open a bank account. It's not hard to do. I have accounts at several different Philippine banks. I do most of my banking at Union Bank, but we have accounts at BDO and BPI for different businesses and that kind of thing. So, you know, go open a bank account. All you need to do is bring your ACR I-card in and show that, and it should be very easy to open a bank account. Now, you said that you have a veterans benefit check that you want to cash every month. Now, if you were in the States, most banks, if you walk in with a U.S. government check, they're just going to cash it for you. But think about this. If you walked into a United States bank and you had a Philippine government check, do you think they'd just take the cash out of the drawer and give it to you? Well, I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to want to wait for that check to clear. And if you don't have an account at the bank where you can deposit it and wait for clearing, they're just not going to help you. Stephen, they're just going to say, sorry, but we just can't cash this for you. We don't know if this is really a real Philippine government check. So, you know, I mean, I think what you're experiencing has to be considered normal. And taking your check to places like Western Union or other non-bank type institutions, of course they're going to charge high rates, just like what would happen at a payday loan shop in the States. And usually the only people that use those kind of shops are the ones that can't do it any other way. So, you know, I have a couple recommendations. Firstly, like I said, go open a bank account. Choose a good, reliable bank, you know, maybe BPI, BDO, Union Bank. There's a number of very reliable banks that I would say I wouldn't experience any problems or I wouldn't expect any problems with. I've been doing banking here, you know, for almost 20 years now. Never had a problem. I started out banking at Union Bank. Actually, it was called iBank at the time, which stood for International Exchange Bank. I had a friend that was a branch manager there, and he's now a vice president for another bank here in the Philippines, China Bank. I believe it's China Bank. iBank ended up being bought by Union Bank some years ago, and I've been with them ever since. But like I say, I do use other banks. Once you set up a bank account, though, Stephen, maybe you don't know this, but the U.S. government checks, like your veterans benefit check, can be direct deposited into your Philippine account. There are many banks in the Philippines that accept direct deposit from the U.S. government for things like Social Security checks, disability checks, veterans checks, VA, whatever you've got. If it comes from the U.S. government, you can have that direct deposited. Once it's direct deposited, you should be able to just access the funds immediately because that's more like a wire transfer type situation, and the funds will be there, you know, right away, within minutes, I think. I would say at the worst, it might be the next day, but I think even within minutes. I've got a list here of about a dozen banks in the Philippines that accept U.S. government direct deposit. I'm sure there might be other banks, but I've got a list here of banks that do it for sure, along with how much they charge to do it. Most of them are like $3 to $5, even as low as $1 service charge for that. There's one, I think the highest I've got on the list is $7. So just choose a bank, one that you are comfortable with. Maybe you want to choose the one with the lowest service charge for accepting direct deposit, and go with that. I emailed this list to Stephen, and I'm going to post this on the blog post that goes along with this video. So take a look at the list if you're interested in doing a government direct deposit from the U.S. into a Philippine bank, and choose one that you think is good. So, waiting 30 days, I think that's the norm for depositing a foreign check, Stephen. I used to have a business that through that business, I received a lot of United States checks. This was like 10 years or more ago. I started out like 15 years ago, and I continued the business for probably at least 5 years. I was selling on eBay in the United States. I was selling items that I could get here in the Philippines, and I had many items that sold very good, very well, and I received a lot of business from that. And I would get at least 100 to several hundred United States checks every month, and I would deposit them locally into my Philippine bank account, which was Union Bank at the time. The amount that they charged me for depositing those checks was $0. They didn't charge anything. I had to wait 30 days for the checks to clear, but I understood that, and that's the way things work. If you were to deposit a check from the Philippines or from any foreign country into the United States account, they're going to have a longer waiting period for that check to clear. So that's just to be expected. But I deposited, like I say, hundreds of checks into my Philippine bank account, checks from the United States, and even from other countries like Canada and a few other countries, and never had a problem. The checks always cleared in 30 days. And I never had any checks returned, or they never refused to accept any checks or anything like that. So, Stephen, I think what you're experiencing is just normal. The answer is open an account in the Philippines. If you have an account, you can deposit your VA check, or you can have it direct deposited. If you deposit the check manually, you're going to have to wait 30 days for it to clear. If it's a direct deposit, I believe that will be available the same day or very quickly. So I hope this helps you, Stephen, and like I say, everything's normal. I don't think that you should be surprised about the treatment that you're getting. A Filipino would get the same treatment that you're getting if they had U.S. government checks, and everything seems to be good. I wish you the best of luck, Stephen, and for anybody else watching or listening, if you have any questions, leave a question on my voicemail line on my website. That's www.liveinthephilippines.com. Just go to my contact page or look on the post for any of my videos. You'll see a place where you can leave a voicemail. If you leave a voicemail, I promise that I'll answer it, and there's a good chance I'll include your question here on the Expat Answerman Videocast as well. If you send me a text, email through my contact form, I may or may not answer it. I can't promise, but if you send a voicemail, I will answer it for sure. If it's a text, it depends on what the question is and how much time I have on that particular day when it comes in. I do stay pretty busy. I get lots and lots of questions, so I can't answer every one. But if you want it answered, send the voicemail. If you're watching on YouTube, why don't you put a like on my video? Just look at the thumbs up button down below and give me a like. I would appreciate that very much, and it will help me establish a little bit better thing on YouTube where they'll show my videos to more people, suggest my videos. Also, why not subscribe to my channel? And also click on the alerts bell there. If you subscribe and you click on the alerts, it will always send you an alert every time I have a new video online. I would appreciate all that very much, and it would really help me out a lot, my friends. So please do that, and keep on enjoying my videocasts. Call in with your questions, and keep on visiting my website as well. I always appreciate that, and look forward to hearing from you. Everybody have a great day.